Dr. Akapo, thank you for your submission. I think it was an interesting clinical question analysis you gave, but for me to be able to, before we start discussing it, I'd like to have a little more context on the patient.
All right, ma'am. His name is Mr. E.H., the 40-year-old man who presented with features of latent autoimmune diabetes of adults. He presented for the first time a month ago with excessive tests, weight loss, and generalized weakness. He also had a random blood glucose of 450 milligrams per deciliter at presentation, and he also had some features of an acute upper respiratory tract infection. So that day he was rehydrated and given some medications to go with. However, he is yet to do other investigations such as his glycated hemoglobin, and he has had some difficulty procuring his insulin and commuter. So he's here today for another checkup. I was just wanted to just review my clinical question analysis with you today.
Okay, Dr. Akapo, so that sounds really interesting. I want us to now look at your submission together, bit part by part.
All right, ma'am.
Okay, so the first part was about the patient's actually met needs. You mentioned, like what you told me in the summary, and that you were able to achieve the diagnosis of latent autoimmune diabetes in an adult. So kudos to you, because not always immediately obvious.
Thank you, ma'am.
You were able to rehydrate him effectively, and you managed the precipitating illness, as well as identify that he had a need for insulin therapy. So I think that's well captured. I don't have anything more to add on this.
Okay, ma'am.
Now, when we come to the patient's unmet needs, you said that the patient was unable to procure insulin and a glucometer, and that he had poor self-efficacy, and there was family dysfunction, as evidenced by poor support from his spouse and other family members. Now, a little bit, how did you identify that he had poor self-efficacy?
Okay. He always seems to deflect his ability to care for himself in terms of providing money to get his medications or monitor his blood sugar. He always seems to defer that to other people. Kind of like he felt like he didn't have the power or the ability to do that for himself. So that's what I meant by that.
Okay. That's interesting. You mentioned there was family dysfunction. I know eventually we had a family meeting together. Was this the first time that you had the family conference?
No, I had been involved in family conference.
Okay, that's good. So here in this section of the clinical question analysis, you looked at your own emotional reactions, your own difficulties. And you said you were frustrated by his helpless attitude. So that word frustrated shows some emotion on your part. Can you go a little bit more on that?
Well, it just seemed like I was always, trying to get him to understand his illness and why he needed to be on the forefront of getting his medications and getting his treatment. But with little or no response from him in terms of providing the money to get his own medication. So that's what I meant by him having this helplessness.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you use the word frustrated.
Yes, I was a bit frustrated because just kept coming week after week, nothing was changing, and you could say that there was some counter transference there.
Oh, okay. So you've heard of the term countertransference?
Yes, I have.
That's good. And what would you do if you found that countertransference was hampering your doctor-patient relationship?
I think it makes sense to actually transfer him to another doctor.
Okay, that's good. So you seem to be on top of the situation. That's great. Right. So in the D section, your educational needs, you identified that you needed more on-the-job training on facilitation of a family conference. I remember that interaction that you mentioned. You were happy that at the end of the conference, the patient had, had his own responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So, so that's something that you liked about the family conference, but that you wanted to receive some training to improve the patient's self-efficacy. And in the next section of the form, you actually explained how you did that. That you did some motivational interviewing training. So can you tell me how that has been and whether you've been able to use this motivational interviewing in this particular patient or another patient?
Yes, I actually attempted to use it in this index case. However, I think a major hindrance to it actually having some effect in him is that it was not in a his stage of change. Was in this pre-contemplation stage. He wasn't ready to really change his behavior at that time. But in other patients who have already had this contemplation stage or beginning to make preparations to change, it's quite effective in them, and I've enjoyed some success actually.
Okay, so overall, this looks like a good clinical question analysis. I think you've learned quite a number of things, and I look forward to the next submission.
Thank you, ma'am.